Should now see the slides with me slightly beneath it. Okay, I am about to close our little survey, whether you are using AI in proposal writing tools such as ChatGPT or Gemini already. I'm closing them in about 10 seconds, and then we kick it off. So last 10 seconds for you to take part. We have nearly 50 votes. So lots more people who are in this conversation can actually vote. 5, 2, 1. Okay. And it's mixed. I'm not sure you can see the results, but basically 59% of you have answered yes, you're using AI when writing proposals, and 41% of you have said no, absolutely not. So, it's a mixed, it's not a convincing yes, and I presume those of you who use it for certain tasks and not for others, but still there are many of you, almost half of you, who do not use it at all. This webinar is designed to give you a bit of an insight into how to use it, if you should use it, and if you can use it, then which areas to join in. Once again, a bit of housekeeping. I would very much love it if you ask any questions that you might have in this webinar. Put them on the Q&A. This webinar is recorded, so you don't need to frantically copy screen and write this proposal here. And finally, we will send out the recording and the notes in the next few days. Now, if someone does not see the slides, that little robot person on your screen and me in front of it, please tell me in the webinar chat, because my colleague Jules cannot join us today for personal reasons, so I'm all alone. My name is Chris. I am the Managing Director of EMSA International. With my team and I around the world, we write a lot of proposals. Our mission is to make NGOs better funded, or non-profit organizations better funded, to operate better and smarter strategies. And that includes, as you can imagine, a lot of proposals to impact investors, to catalytic finance providers, to institutional and traditional donors, to foundations, and even high-net individuals or family offices. All these proposals, we're producing a fair number of them every week, need to be well managed. Well, managing a good proposal pipeline and production pipeline is not particularly complicated, but it has to be done well. And over the last 6 months or so, since March of this year, we have adapted to systematically using artificial intelligence tools, a variety of them, to help us make the job easier. And I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is, yes, it does actually make certain jobs a lot easier. So that's great. The bad news is that we have to be extremely careful what to use it for. In this webinar, my colleagues from around the world who are busy proposal writing have summarized their tips since March of this year in where we use it and where we use it best. Our hope is that you find these tips useful and that you can use them in your journey to improve your proposals. And if you are an EMSA partner through maybe our funding support scheme, then please reach out. Remember that training is free of charge to our partners, and we can obviously continue to provide your team with input and take over partial proposal writing there for you in using AI and other tools. Here are the talking points today. We have about 25 minutes, half an hour. This is a short webinar, and then we got some questions if there are any questions on the Q&A later. I want to be very pragmatic today, since also I'm alone. As I said, my colleague Jules can't unfortunately join us. We want to discuss some practical uses of the proposals. We also want to have a brief look into a warning, things that you should absolutely not do. Have a quick look in the future, what the next 6 to 12 months bring, and then see, should we adapt or are we perishing? Those are the things we are looking at. This is a very pragmatic. I hope that you pick up some really good tips from this webinar that can use it. Now I can't get these things away. Never mind. We have to live with those now. I thought they disappear. The next slide. A big thank you to all those NGOs that we are already working with through our funding partnership. Here we obviously work together to give you the intelligence, the donor intelligence, and provide proposal development support as well as strategy advice. And thanks in particular to those who have consented to share their experience working with us in this webinar on AI specifically. You know who you are. Thanks for allowing us to push this knowledge outside. Moving on. Here are some of the tools we use. So all of you will have heard about ChatGPT, and many of you of those who are using it will be using it as well. But there are many other many other AI tools. Bear in mind that ChatGPT has made big waves earlier this year because it made it available so quickly and so pervasively, some say recklessly. GPT stands for General Purpose Technology, so therefore it is also the most general AI. However, we had AI to some degree for several years, and there are specific, very developed AI tools, we just didn't call them AI, I suppose, that we also use on a day-to-day basis, or we had used. Some of you may be aware with Gemini, that is the Google AI that might appear on your screen if you're using Chrome, for example, that has specific integration into the Google products and made some of the jobs of summarizing it easier. There are also specific AIs that are under development, such as FundWriter AI or Better Proposals AI. We've used them in the past. We've discontinued using them, if I'm very honest, because the ChatGPT performed better here. There's also Consensus, which is a tool I would like to mention. I'd love to hear if you know Consensus already, which is a academic referencing AI. And that is one of the tips I would really advise to use Consensus, because it makes this so much easier to actually go through the deck and find a reference to what you've written and then quote that reference professionally into your pitch or into your proposal. It just saves a lot of hours of work, but more on that later. Let's get on. And I want to start with the good news. Where does using AI really work? Here are a few things, and with prompts, again, you're getting the slide deck later, where it has really worked. So what we are commonly doing now is we're uploading past project reports, so completed projects from your organization, to generate a track record summary. And we've given here this prompt, where we said, please summarize the enclosed project report or reports to be used as a success track record in a proposal using a factual tone, highlighting 3 key achievements of the project in bullet point format. So if you are that specific to the AI, then it generates a decent enough draft. You still have to sort of adjust it and work with it, but it's a pretty good draft. So we literally took the M&E evaluation, or the end of project evaluation of the entire track record of our funding partners, uploaded it into our personal, not the general AI's tool, and then generated track records. And that gave us a pretty good draft. So where you are applying for a program, where you need to tailor the track record of what you've done to match this particular grant or this particular investment opportunity, then by all means, this is the way to do it. Where it also works, another good piece of good news is Consensus, what I've just mentioned. Consensus is a tool specifically designed for scientific referencing. It summarizes the state of scientific research on any particular topic with references. And that is the really brief part. So here you see a prompt that we've been using. As an example, we said, write the introduction of a paper on the effects of climate change on GDP, gross domestic product, so it's an economic proposal here, using citations since 2015, only referring to the Chief of Party conferences since then in no more than 200 words. And here it designed no K argument, but the way we use it here, not really what they write, the summary we don't really use, but we're using these references. And this is where it became really good. Unlike ChatGPT, we actually get proper references. And as you can see, it got the years right as well. So Consensus is a free tool, at least the basic version. I think the latest was that you can send so many prompts per week or per day. And that I would also greatly recommend, and our team would recommend it for scientific referencing, and copy that into your proposal. Again, it saves you hours and hours. The third part, the third top tip is where this actually works, is where we uploaded a TOR, or request for purchase, with our drafted answer. So imagine you have a draft concept note already, you are uploading that, and use ChatGPT or use Gemini or use another AI tool to sort of brainstorm, asking it, can you please check if I truly answered the question or what I might have missed. So I'm using a prompt like this. Does my draft wording below answer all the aspects of the question uploaded in the PDF, which is the RFP or the TORs of the donor? Or are there any aspects that didn't answer yet? And here I recommend the GPT-4o version, because it allows you to ask follow-up questions into particular areas, and it has a temporary memory where you don't have to re-upload and re-answer the question all the time. It's basically a brainstorming function, and that's what it does extremely well. And here, that's what we use it as for. So we use it as a virtual colleague to check that our answers are actually not missing anything major. And a fourth tip of where this really works is translating and reformulating. So often we work with local partners where the English is not particularly good, or we work in a language that neither of us speak. So I think we had even some indigenous languages in Latin America the other day, and we've just basically translated this via ChatGPT as well as a language AI, and using the two tools in combination did help us a lot in being able to work with that partner in their language. And the advantage here is sort of helps us to be more locally led. We were able to correspond we are able to correspond and to take their answers in their native language, which understandably is it's easier for them to write, but it's also more comprehensive for the local partner to write. So we literally said, look, we're translating it, and then we're putting it into a AI language translator and general tools, asking a prompt like this, without adding any other content from any other sources. So it has to be very clear. Please reformulate and summarize this into professional language, British English, no more than this many words, 2,000 words. If you are asking it this specific, then it is decent enough. You still need to proofread, you still need to go into the documents, you still need to critically evaluate. But for the translation and the reformulation, it is pretty decent right now. So those are sort of 4 top tips that I can recommend. I'm running out of time. I've got 10 minutes left. There are, unfortunately, some bad news as well. There are ways and tools where this doesn't work. So before we go into the details, here is the general state for that particular purpose of the slide. AI will definitely get better over time. Today, it's not performing terribly well. If you ask it a certain solution, it will do awfully. if you ask it to generate a list of donors for a specific location, say a territory or a country, it is extremely weak. It doesn't understand the question. It will simply word match the websites of that donor. Donor mapping, absolutely awful. It is also extremely weak when you ask it for initiative, like create a first list of thematically interested donors. Again, donor mapping, extremely weak. It gets things wrong. It actually is a bit of a waste of time, frankly. Not very good. If, however, you're asking it to generate a summary from a previous proposal to recycle it and repurpose it for another funder, pretty decent. And if you ask, and it understands numbers well, sometimes we are uploading a numerical budget and saying, write me a narrative to this. That is, particularly if you specify, write me a narrative without any financial jargon. Then it's pretty good. I'm a chartered accountant and former finance director, so I use a lot of financial jargon, and I use AI to not do that. Absolutely awful as well is when you ask it to apply the rules and regulation of a donor. The problem with AI is it understands a lot almost instantaneously, but it has no concept whatsoever of what's relevant and what's important and what is not. It's basically a highly capable, fast reader without any job experience. And that's the way to think about it. Think about this highly talented, extremely well-educated graduate who has their first job. They don't have the experience yet to highlight what is important and what is not. So if you ask it similarly to write a convincing value for money section, terrible, because it can't set priorities of what would present value in this proposal. Or indeed, when you ask it to prioritize important key facts in a proposal, equally awful, absolute fail, because again, the AI tool may be intelligent, but it has no concept of how to prioritize, how to put value on something. And it doesn't truly understand what you're doing. You're just processing and pattern matching, basically. So in these things, we have to be aware of that, of the limitations. And I think we're some way off for an AI to be able to do that. So let's have a quick look in the future as we draw to a close. I had the pleasure of meeting the chairman of ChatGPT, Sam Altman, in February in Davos, and asking him, because ChatGPT is a general purpose technology, what can AI actually do better in 2 years' time? His answer was everything. It can do nothing in particular, but it probably all they can say. The only forecast that Sam had was beyond now we will do everything better, which it's a weird answer for a technology that has had such an impact by a company, OpenAI, that has so many public attention paid to it, so much funding in it right now, and they don't really have a plan where this is developing. So the fundamental problem here is that we are developing a technology with terrifying speed and extremely low visibility. That is a problem for the investors into OpenAI and other AI. But more importantly to me, this is a problem for users of AI, particularly when we work in the development and aid sector. So be aware that you are working with an AI tool that may be highly intelligent, but has no concept of what you value, what is important, or even a conscience. I think we need to be very conscious of the fact that as we adopt AI into our work practices, be it on proposal writing or be it on anything else, that the system, dare I say, the intellect we are entrusting information with, that we are entrusting our time with, has probably not got a conscience. There's absolutely no reason why something has to have a conscience to be intelligent or vice versa. So that limits how much we can actually use it going further. So there are some major risks here. As I said earlier, AI so far cannot really differentiate, and except in the simple tasks, what's important and what's an unimportant fact. It is basically an amoral brain that can process at light speed. It sounds very convincing, but users without any relevant information on the subject, they're really easily fooled into thinking that this content is correct. And it isn't. It is very often incorrect. Be aware that AI also, by the tech company's own admission, fabricates information. It accelerates, therefore, human bias. If I ask in a certain way, it tries to please. And it's not confidential. Some AI producers and some tech firms have said themselves, they do not control anymore where the information we are inputting is saved. So if you asked some of the companies to delete your personal information, they would technically unlikely be able to do so unless some charts. And most important is that AI does not reflect your values. It is particularly good at creating inclusive language, not particularly good at creating inclusive language. It just creates convincing language. So I said this in February here, that we may have some degree of intelligence already. We might even be more intelligent than the average human being one day. Probably that is not too far away. The scientific consensus is that AI is likely more intelligent than the average human in the next 2 to 5 years. But that doesn't mean it has a conscience. And I don't know about you, but I just don't trust an amoral colleague, regardless how capable they are. And that limits my interaction here. So we're very much using it, but we have to be extremely aware of the risks here. What is fantastic, however, which I'm a big fan of, is it can really boost locally led development. As I said earlier, we're using AI to translate and to transcribe and to change from any language whatsoever into the donor language, be that English or whatever, German or whatever language you want. And allowing and being able to communicate with local organizations in their own language is fantastic. We've managed to make some real advances there over the last 6 months, even writing proposals based on a WhatsApp dialogue and being able to get this on the ground information on working with local partners who may not have the connectivity or the digital skills or frankly the language skills to be able to really bring their local knowledge into the forefront of a proposal. Now, we all want to be locally led. We all are convinced, apologies, that the more local an organization is, the better, but we can't get this done without the tool. So we want to adapt or perish. I would absolutely say we structure it for localization and use AI for this co-creation. That is what I would absolutely use it for. Finally, let's think about it. Roy Amara's law, very famous, said, look, we tend to overestimate potential in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. I think that's a really, really key area. Good. I hope that helps. We are now getting over to the questions. I will quickly switch on the Q&A and give us 2 minutes as part of this webinar to see if there are any questions. Let me just activate the Q&A. There's 2 or 3, and I'll give you 2 or 3 minutes to ask questions once I get a water, and then we get to the Q&A part. So please put any questions you have into the Q&A. I'll be back in 1 minute. Okay, here we go. Thank you very much for your questions. I'll take them from the top because today, as I said, I'm alone. Any questions we might not get to, I will try to answer by emails if you have signed up to your emails. Janet Raiklin, you've asked right at the beginning of the webinar whether I can advise regarding paid versions of GPT, whether one paid subscription can be shared by multiple members of the organization. Janet, depends. ChatGPT, I know that Amazon has a group notification. Now, I'm not the techie, but I'm pretty certain it's pretty easy. I know we have a group company-wide account for Amazon on ChatGPT, on Gemini, Consensus, and a few other tools. But I'm sure if you go through the website, you can quite easily figure that one out. Shouldn't be much of a problem. Andrea Düchting, you asked, when do you use AI for scientific referencing or other purposes? How do you ensure intellectual property? Andrea, Consensus AI, so ChatGPT doesn't, but Consensus AI, the tool I recommended, they guarantee that this thing they're referencing is in the public domain only. So Consensus, I understand, is being fed only by knowledge in the public domain. So therefore there, but you can just go and ask it or double check if you find that reference on the web somewhere at Lectora or any other academic databases. That should be fine. I'm just picking a random. Katie Jacot, you've asked, do you anticipate any donor guidelines around the use of tools in proposals? No, is the answer, Katie. I spoke to a German and a UK donor on this particular topic earlier this week, and they don't. I know that in Germany, a donor in Berlin is starting to use AI for budget and financial analysis. That makes it faster for them, so they use it themselves partially. But there is no need for donors to regulate this area, or at least I haven't heard any donor wishing to do so. Ultimately, what counts is that your output, your proposal is pretty good. Investors, conscious investors or impact investors, the two I spoke to them on this subject have already started using AI to sort of sense check a pitch and contact map a particular market which they're unfamiliar with. So I think the regulation area is not really down to the donors there, given that Europe is pretty good at the regulations at the moment as well. Someone anonymous asked us any success stories by using AI proposal writing in general or failures. Yes, one major failure I want to share with you. So I shared some use 4 cases of where we can really use this, where this is really useful. Hopefully you found them useful as well. What we get more and more of, however, is we do get drafts from people who clearly have just punched in the entire concept request for purchase into a free AI tool and copied and pasted the answer onto a PDF or onto a document and then send it to us. That is obviously, by sentence 3, because everything is generalities. It sounds convincing, it really isn't. So I would strongly recommend against this. Frankly, we have a few of those, and I'm aware that a foundation based in France has started to shortlist, to blacklist emails that are clearly using AI in this way. Everything that an AI tool puts out for you, you have to sense check. As I said, I think twice or 3 times, it doesn't know what's important and what is not. So that's down to you. Is Copilot a recommended AI tool? Mary, yes, we're using Copilot. Gemini and Copilot are different to ChatGPT in that Copilot and Gemini from Google are integrated into Google or Microsoft's ecosystem. So they use different things. I find that for the asking general questions or uploading as information and finding it, a specific AI tool like Consensus or ChatGPT is better. But Copilot and ChatGPT, sorry, Copilot or Gemini are certainly good when integrating it into their area. If you don't pay for that, however, you probably get the cheaper service. So let's be aware of that. And therefore less power and less good results. Someone anonymous just asked, does using ChatGPT limit and disadvantage the success rate of a proposal? Yeah, as I said, if you are trusting it too much, then it certainly does. I think the point here is something very important to remember is that it's a very useful tool when used right. When you are just writing the entire proposal, then it's just pretty useful. Useless. I'm just going down the Q&A. I see some questions in the chat. Please do put them in the Q&A. Otherwise, I really do struggle with this today because I'm alone. Someone anonymously asked whether, in my view, should we be encouraging local partners with limited English language ability to use AI to improve or correct the written English in their own funding applications? Any issues we should consider when doing so? That's a really good question. As I said, one of the most exciting things about AI is that for our work in proposal development, it really boosts locally led development. But why ask them to translate it to English? Why don't you ask them to just write down their local knowledge in whatever language that is native to them? You probably get more out and you do the translation. That way you can structure the input into the into the proposal format that you may require, and you don't lose anything on that translation between the local partner and the proposal on this side. I think that's a much better way. And you also save the time for the local partner a lot. I know that the local partners we've been working with were very appreciative about being able to write in their own language. We even had a consortia of local partners that spoke different languages, and they wrote into an online-based document in different languages. So we ended up with this 40-page document of Spanish and some other languages, including some indigenous languages, some version of Pidgin English, some version of other English. It was a mess, basically, and it would have taken us a week to take it apart. And we took the entire thing section by section, by language section, and asked two AI tools parallel to translate. Be careful that you are specific about asking it to translate, not to summarize. So you want the truest sense ever. We also use some non-AI tools like Lingo to do that. And that really, really helped. So you still have to do a lot of copy and pasting and you still have to produce a document, but within a couple of hours or so, we had a pretty good and concise document in English, which contained a lot of local knowledge. So that was useful. Good. I think. Oh, there's two more questions. Sofat Kirsmer. Sorry if I butchered your name here. My apologies. Love to know where this name is from. Are you familiar with AI tools that aid with minute taking and how reliable they are? Yes. There are some tools in Copilot, Gemini, which do this. This tool here right now, we have your transcript and a summary going on. I find them pretty useless, personally, to be honest, because again, it doesn't know what is important, what is not. So when we're asking AI to note take and to summarize, it really struggles to make a conscious decision of what is just by the way and what is really, really important. So I'm afraid I'm not using it. What I have been using is I'm asking a tool, a meeting to transcribe the meeting into just new transcription. That works quite well. Copy and paste that transcription into AI and have that summarize it. That gave, for a non-so-essential meeting, that gave me a fairly good overview about what was discussed. Particularly if you then ask the reverse question in the summary, what topics did you omit? And then you get a list of questions that is not in the summary. So with 2-3 questions, you get a pretty good impression of what this meeting was about, which you may or may not have been able to join. And then last question today, Is ChatGPT or any other AI able to analyze a strategy of a funder, say a 50-page document, and provide local solutions based on the targeted guarantees profile? No. It will give you an answer. It's going to be very bad. The AI doesn't understand what is important. I said this like many times right now, so I'm sorry that I repeat myself. But if you have a 50-page document by a funder and you need to analyze that strategy of a donor, I'm afraid you can use an AI to summarize and give yourself a way in, but you're going to have to read the document at some point. 50 pages, not that much. Maybe get a cup of coffee together with that. If you are submitting one or several proposals to that donor, you need to understand that donor's strategy in order to align to some degree or at least speak to their strategy. What you can do here, and what I would recommend you do, is you take the strategy and you use it to brainstorm. So you could ask a prompt like, given the strategy here and given my project design there, so you upload these two documents, how do I best make my project design align to the donor strategy? It will probably give you 8 of 10 things you already knew and you already are doing, but it may give you those additional 1 or 2 brainstorms that you didn't know. So we're using it as a brainstorming tool quite a lot. And then before we run out of time, Peter Vashira, sorry, I butchered your name again. Again, interesting name. Do you train CBOs on how to raise funds through excellent proposals? Yes, Peter, we have a whole training scheme. Please note, so what I can show you, and actually I should finish the presentation with this. Let me just get back on this. Just 1 second. There we go. There are some brand new training courses, which I meant to share with you anyway. So Peter, thank you very much for the prompt. You can now join us online if you can't travel. There's a new course on right-winning proposals. It's a self-paced 5 weeks course with live sessions in between with myself and donor experts and guest speakers, where you can sign up. And then there is the Sustainable Income for NGO course, which is for anybody who wants to understand the principles of sustainable funding for their NGO, away from this rat race of grants and chasing for the grants. We also have some in-person training courses coming up. The last Right-Winning Proposals course is starting next month, the last of this year, I mean, don't worry. Starting in Berlin. I think there's 2 or 3 places still available. So if you can, visa-wise, make your journey to Berlin, by all means, do sign up. My brilliant colleague Handi is facilitating that course. And next year in London and in Amsterdam, we have the Funding and Reserves course, more strategic, as well as the budgeting course, very essential. We also bring up a new course on impact investment later next year. And I understand from my colleagues in the training team that all the courses for 2025 are already online under this website down here, Amsterdam International and Training Courses. Good. You can also see obviously the blog or podcasts under Amsterdam Insights. I hope that was helpful to you. We believe obviously that doing good can be done a lot better. So if we can help you do that, if my colleagues or I can help you build a nonprofit that is here to stay, that is properly funded, that is professionally executed, then by all means, please reach out. We'd love to partner with you then. Thank you very much. The second to last webinar is taking place of the year was taking place the end of October around building a NGO business partnership, so the private sector work. Please feel free to join up on the website through that. And that leaves me to thank you for listening, and I wish you a wonderful day. Goodbye.